Hello, I'm Lydia and you're listening to Lens from the Fens. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode for Lens from the Fens. I hope that you are all well and I hope that you're all enjoying the current autumnal weather. Now that the clocks have gone back, we are experiencing the shorter days in terms of daylight, but even when there is daylight, the amount of autumn colours that I've seen over the recent weeks have just been amazing, and it makes me fall in love with this season even more. So I certainly hope that you have all managed to see a bit of this season. And with that, I've managed to see this seasonal change outside my workplace. I don't know if I mentioned it before, I probably have, but I have a lovely window that faces out before a main road, but it's lined with trees, and I've got a bird table outside. And at the minute, I'm getting a lot of the grey squirrels and wood pigeons visiting. But I had quite a surprise the other day where I saw a great spotted woodpecker come to the feeder, which was really surprising. I wasn't expecting it. But that just adds to my ever-growing list of birds that I see just outside my workplace. And the hedgehogs outside my garden, they're still foraging around, collecting bits for when they hibernate. They've been coming out for food as well. And I managed to have a peek under the hedgehog house I've got just off from my decking. It's on the grass area and it's underneath a hedge, so it's well protected. And I had a peek under the house the other day and it is filled to the brim with leaves, all sorts of twigs. So it's quite exciting to see. It's the first year that it's been properly put out and being used. So it's quite exciting to know that a hedgehog is going to hopefully be using it for when it comes to hibernation. So getting into this episode, it's going to be quite photography related this time round. I know quite a few times I've gone onto the subject of just simply the wildlife near my area and not so much about the equipment that I use. So I'm going to chat with you all about what I have recently purchased to go towards my wildlife photography. It's been something I've considered purchasing for quite some time. I either couldn't find the time in which to purchase it, or I didn't necessarily have the funds. As everyone knows, any sort of photography can be expensive or is expensive. And it was only up until recently I realised that a lot of the lenses that I don't necessarily use very often, simply for what they are. They don't really have a good impact on what I want to photograph, which is obviously wildlife photography. So I've done a lot of research, I did a lot of comparisons, and this resulted in me purchasing the Sigma 150 to 600mm contemporary lens. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of the specifications of this lens. This is just taken straight from the Sigma Imaging UK website. If many of you are familiar with the Sigma range, you will also know, as well as there being the contemporary lens for 150 to 600mm, there's also the sports version. And a bit of comparison just on these two. The contemporary is definitely a bit more compact and it's also a bit more lightweight. This enables easy handling and it also makes it possible to do longer periods of time when you're doing handheld photography. You may already know that I do a lot of handheld work. I rarely use a tripod just because when I come across any subject that's moving, I obviously don't have the time to get the tripod out, which is something I want to work on because a lot of the time I come up on my subject rather than waiting for it to come to me. So I definitely want to use more my tripod. But in the meantime, this new lens, it definitely feels a lot more lightweight, and if I do want to do more handheld photography, then I can still do that because it's not going to be as heavy. This lens also comes with a detachable tripod socket, which allows you to just carry the lens by itself or to make it fit easier into your carrier bag. And when the tripod socket has been removed, you can replace it with a rubber protective cover, which I didn't know I would receive, but it just allows it to further reduce its weight and a convenient experience. If the tripod socket often gets in the way, then you can remove it and the rubber band would just cover up where it was attached to so it doesn't get damaged, which I find quite useful. So with it being a newer model compared to the lenses I previously had, there's a lot of extra features that I am not quite familiar with, just because it's a newer model and it obviously has a lot better specs and things like that. So one thing that I noticed that comes with this lens is that it has an optical stabilizer. So this lens has two OS modes, mode 1 for general photography and mode 2 for motorsports and other types of genres requiring panning. So with bird photography, for example, when you want to photograph a bird in flight, you pan, which is where you follow your subject, keeping it in focus, and this makes the background sort of streak, and it just gives the impression that the subject is obviously moving at quite a fast speed. Another feature that I am really happy with is that this lens comes with a zoom lock switch, which can be set at any focal length. So this means that if I want to use my lens at one fixed focal length, I can then switch the lock on at whatever desired focal length I want it to be at, and it will stay there, which comes in quite handy because I have always wanted to get a different type of fixed lens. But again, it's expensive and it just takes a bit of time to work out what is the right product for you, for your photography. So the fact that this Sigma lens comes with a zoom lock switch means I can fix it to 600mm and I can just work with that focal length, which would be really quite fun to do. It would be a bit of an extra challenge to work out where I want my subject to be positioned in the frame. A lot of the time I am constantly putting it to a full focal length, so the longest or the furthest it will go. So it would be handy to have it just at a fixed length when I'm out either using it on a tripod. And it does also mention that it helps during long exposure photography, which again, it helps because you obviously want to keep a fixed zoom when you're doing any sort of stills work, again, long exposures. So I'm really happy with that. I didn't know that it would come with that, to be honest, but it's something I'm learning to adapt to going forward. The lens also comes with water and oil repellent coating. So this just allows any sort of water splashes from the rain, for example, to be wiped off easily, and it prevents things like oil and fat from sticking to the surface. And the lens mount has also been incorporated with a rubber sealing, which protects the mount part to the camera body from things like dust and water drops. Again, really useful, especially if I'm out photographing in unsettling conditions. And this type of lens also has the hypersonic motor, or HSM, which ensures a high speed and a quiet automatic focus, as well as a full-time manual focus override by the rotation of the focus ring. So with my older lenses, I've already been used to doing manual focus because it didn't exactly work with me to use the automatic focus for a bit of the time. So yeah, this is really handy that I can still do manual focus. And I have tested out the automatic focus and it is super smooth, super quick. Yeah, it's really enjoyable to use so far. In addition to the automatic and manual focus, there was also a manual override as part of one of the options of the focus mode switch. So by setting it to the manual override position, it switches to a manual focus by rotating the focus ring even during continuous automatic focus. And with the automatic focus position, standard full-time manual focus is available. So if the automatic focus was to pick up something in the foreground, then I would be able to manually focus it onto my actual subject rather than it quickly coming into the foreground or going quick into the background. I can control the automatic focus a bit better that way. Alongside getting the Sigma lens, I also managed to get hold of a teleconverter, which is something I haven't used before, but I, again, considered it previously for something to help to gain more focal length, especially when my subjects are far away. So with the lens itself, I also got the additional Sigma's Teleconverter TC1401, which the zoom on it is amazing, considering I've got 600mm as my full zoom focal length. This can actually take it to between 210 and 840mm at f7 to 9, which is insane. Again, I tested it out quickly on a couple of buildings across the field out the back of my house, and you can see all the bricks on the buildings and even zooming in on the playback mode through the camera, the detail is amazing on it considering the added focal length it's given. Just one thing that I've wanted to point out, apparently it can only produces a manual focus when the teleconverter is attached to the Sigma lens. It's again something I need to look into because I haven't used this type of equipment before. It's all new to me. But from what I've seen, it's only the manual focus I can currently use when I'm using the teleconverter as well. But it's all a learning process. I'm definitely going to be taking it out a lot more. Maybe even as soon as tomorrow. I want to take it out for a sort of a test drive properly, just to see how it handles. But from what I've seen already and all the different new features I get to play around with, it is a really good type of camera, especially for wildlife photography. So one thing that I know I lack of when it comes to wildlife photography is the videoing side. A lot of the time when I come across a subject, I just want to get the pictures. I don't consider doing a video of any sort. And it sort of came to light in my episode before the deer rutting at Bradgate Park, where I came across the deer in the local woods. The moment, it felt like it happened for such a long time, and I felt as though I would have had time to also get a video as well as taking photographs. But this was before I had this Sigma lens. Now, I'm thinking that with this new Sigma lens, with the quality it's giving me and the automatic focus, the zoom lock switch, all of that, I think I'm going to be able to get some really nice videography to go alongside my photographs. So if it comes across a time where I want to get a video shot when I've got a subject in front of me, then yeah, I want to definitely try that out. If it comes up successful, then I'll obviously post about it, and it will come up as another pro for this lens. I haven't even taken it out for a proper go yet, but from what I've seen, the way I've held it, it's lightweight, it's easy to carry. You can take the tripod socket off just for easier handling, but again, I want to use the tripod more, so that will come in handy. The Optical Stabilizer, the automatic focus, manual focus. There's just so many new features I need to play around with. So alongside taking pictures with it, I will definitely try and do some videos as well, just because from what I've seen already, the quality is going to look really good in my opinion. So if you are a fellow wildlife photographer or you're wanting to get into wildlife photography, then I can definitely recommend this lens. Obviously, it's got a big price tag, as with any other sort of camera equipment. So it's definitely something that you'll have to consider investing in. And you'll definitely have to make sure that it is the right lens for you. If you're wanting to do landscape photography, then this sort of lens, it can definitely do it because it does have, obviously, the 150mm focal length. But if you want, obviously, any wider angled shots, then that's not going to give you the shot you want for things like landscape and possibly even portrait photography. So definitely wildlife and definitely sports, I think, is the best avenue to go down with this lens. But in terms of other lenses I can think of that would benefit you, the 75 to 300mm lens is a really good starting lens for just anyone wanting to get into photography. It has a good focal range. You can do quite a few macro shots. It allows you to do macro. So you can do plants or flowers in your garden. It can do good standard portrait photos as well. And then given the option that you've got 300mm on a super lightweight lens, it can give you just a whole range of different types of scenarios to work with. And if you are looking to do more closer subjects, again, anything with a wide angle for landscape shots, still life, even things like that, then something along the lines of a 24 to 70mm would benefit you. It's a lens I haven't got myself, but from what I've seen from the works of other photographers I follow, they come out really good quality, and it captures the whole environment that they're in. Alongside them doing the photographs, they also get videos on that type of lens. So my best advice I can give to you right now is that you do your research. There's an awful lot of forums out there. There's review videos online that you can listen to. And from there, you can then work out what is the best type of lens for your photography. If you want to do landscape photography, then a zoom lens isn't going to be the best option. But there are plenty of other options out there for across all the different types of camera models, through to Canon, through to Nikon, through to Sigma. So you can basically find your niche, you can see what works for you, and then just really consider that these are going to be investments and you want to get the best camera for your work. As I said earlier, I'm going to be taking it out for a little test run either tomorrow or the day after that. So it will be more than likely that I'll be putting up images from my new lens in the near future. And again, I can give further feedback on future podcast episodes. But again, from what I've had so far, I'm loving it. It's definitely a good purchase for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what I get out of this lens. Just before I round this episode off, I will quickly mention, if you haven't seen it on my social media pages already, my podcast episodes are now available to listen through on YouTube. It is basically a still image of Lens from the Fens with my audio over it. So it just gives people another way of listening to my podcasts for those who don't have full access to things like Apple Podcasts or even Spotify. So you can find me on YouTube, just search my name, Lydia Pinfold, and it will pop up in the search results. So I've got all of my previous episodes, and from now on, when the original airing goes up, they will also be put onto YouTube at the same time. Thank you all again very much for listening. I will give you a little sneak peek as to what I might be talking about in my next episode. As we are now fully into autumn, going into winter, I thought I'd mention just a few of the sights you can see throughout the colder and darker months. So along with the types of animals and events you can witness throughout this time, I will also attempt to include the type of photography skills needed for that type of scenario, especially when you're working with a lot of low light. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I'll be most likely discussing on my next episode. Otherwise, I will finish off by saying thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to carry on sharing if you can. Again, through Facebook and Instagram, you can find my work on there. And you can visit my website, which is www.pinfold-photographic.co.uk. And I shall speak to you all again very soon. Goodbye. My podcast cover shows my own image created using Canva. The theme music is provided by Purple Planet Music. Check out their royalty-free music at purple-planet.com.